Major League Soccer season starts in 1 week from the time I am taping this. Inter Miami versus Real Salt Lake. Wednesday night, MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Check it out. Check out the service. The league's certainly getting a lot better. We are, despite the fact that they didn't have any movement with the salary cap, I know that was to the dismay of many, but this is done for a reason, and the growth in spending, although slow, has been by design, so Major League Soccer can not get too big for its britches, and the proof is in the pudding. Soon going to have a 30-team league. You got to learn from situations in the past, so that is what the league has done. Now, that said, this past winter market, record movements, certainly in transfer fees, big transfer fees for elite players and a variety of clubs, from the established clubs to the clubs that have struggled, all making a play, getting people very excited. And obviously, these next few years are huge for Major League Soccer, with Copa America this summer, World Cup, and the most important years for the league, 2027 and 2028, because once that World Cup happens, and it happens every World Cup, you have eyeballs. And people are interested in soccer for a few months and then they go away. Well, after 2026, you get that hook in, you keep it in. Keep it in as many mouths as possible. And that is the pivotal stretch for growth. If we see that growth, we have got something. I am confident we will. A lot of factors can accentuate that. Success from the national team, more and more players getting recognized abroad, certainly, playing for big clubs and big competitions. So this is all part of a big plan, right? Because although there's slow, steady growth in the finances, you want to see there's some bigger pushes, and we have seen some indicators of that. Lionel Messi, the biggest target in the world, has come to Major League Soccer. He begins his second season here in 2024. And those big signings, many of which we don't know about. I think the discussion that Major League Soccer is a retirement league has subsided a fair bit, because all the big names, the $7, $8, $9 million transfers, are young players from South America and Europe, and even beyond there. So it's a young players league where we'll be able to see develop. So you have Lionel Messi, you have the young players. What are you missing? What is that one factor that could put MLS over the top? Well, today on the Soccer OG, check out the Soccer OG podcast. I have a new one there with Ryan O'Hanlon, who writes for ESPN. He has a great book called Net Gains, talks about analytics and this revolution in the sport of soccer. Perhaps one day it catches up with sports like baseball, where analytics are so prevalent. That is out right now. You'll enjoy the conversation. You'll get a lot smarter. You know why I can tell you that? Because I got a lot smarter. Like and subscribe us here. So what can MLS do in and around and after the World Cup to really, really fortify itself commercially and on the field as well? And I was a guest on the Straight Red Card with Brett and Derek because I tweeted this idea and they were up in arms. And it's okay that they are up in arms, but I am talking here. Don't shoot the messenger. I am just speaking from how I think Major League Soccer would look at it. How do they get a big name player that could accentuate the league more than any other player out there, with the exception of Lionel Messi and perhaps Kylian Mbappe, which they're not going to approach at this time? The answer is the biggest American stars that have played well in Europe, that have gotten some recognition, that you have an opportunity to bring over because A, they have that exposure, people know who they are, and they are American and playing in American League, and overpaying them to do that would be appealing. And there are the big three. There are several others on the second tier, but the big three: Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, the biggest stars, the biggest names, the guys you can really push commercially. And that's a big part of all of this, right? You want to throw a poster out if you're Apple TV with Messi's image and Christian Pulisic. If you could get those two and maybe a Weston McKennie, we are cooking. Now, I know many of you may be watching this and say, no, they're not coming here. Or no, they shouldn't come here. And those are two different things here. Because a lot of people say they're not coming here. And I would respectfully say that is not your decision. Let's kind of go through these three players. Christian Pulisic would be the crown jewel because he is the best talent. He is the most established. He is the poster boy really right now of American soccer, and that should only grow. He's 25 years old now. He's been at it a long time, so people, associate with him. He is many people's favorite player here in the United States. So Christian Pulisic was asked relatively recently whether he would come to MLS, and he says, no, I'm not an old player, maybe down the road. And that was the fodder that Derek and Brett of the Straight Red Card used to me. He said, hey, he said it, he's not coming. And I'm like, wait a minute. Just because someone says that, many times in sports, we do 180s. And MLS, whether it's a club or whether it's the whole league with a lot behind it, can make a very appealing offer. And for Christian Pulisic, 25 now, he is under contract with AC Milan. Things are going brilliantly for 2027 and then an option for 2028. And I will preface this because Weston McKennie plays in the Serie A too. That can be a pretty chaotic league. A lot of movement for players and clubs, etc. So it can be unstable. So keep that in mind here. And things are going great for Christian Pulisic, but there was a time where it wasn't going as great. Certainly it is Chelsea time. But right now, and look, I would love to see him in MLS, but if he is kicking tail at AC Milan and he's becoming their best player, and look, Rafael Leao, rumors that he might head to Real Madrid or what have you, and I think that would probably happen. And if it does, then Christian Pulisic moves up the pecking order of critical players for AC Milan. And if that's the case, I don't want to see him come back. I want to see him spread his wings and be phenomenal. And for Weston McKennie, I was talking to a friend. I truly believe this. Barcelona are struggling, and Weston McKennie is the exact type of player that they need. A really all-round midfielder with incredible distribution and skills. So why not? And he's not super expensive, which benefits MLS when we have this discussion. So back to Christian Pulisic. Now, one thing about all three of these players, when we talk about them together, there are some similarities. They all have deep European ties. Christian Pulisic, his family, brought him over there, and he was with the youth team in Dortmund since 2015. So he's pushing a decade over in Europe already. He's almost European, really. Well, I'll give you some data that could tell you otherwise, but he's comfortable. Weston McKennie, father was based in Ramstein Air Force Base. It was the Schalke Youths in 2016. Did come up, he was with FC Dallas through 2016 with their academy. So, he's got deep ties in Europe as well. Gio Reyna, born in Sunderland, where his father was playing, grew up in Europe, moved to the United States when he was 5. That's very young, so he identifies as an American, but still has that European sensibility. And that could keep all three of them in Europe because they're comfortable there. Even though we hear a lot of Christian Pulisic recently did say he loves the food in Italy, but the candies are not so good. Can you imagine Christian Pulisic comes to MLS and he goes, well, I missed my Skittles and M&Ms. That would be amazing. And there's your commercial element. Boom. Maybe not Skittles. They're getting some, well, we'll see. Well, let's just say M&Ms. And then he comes back, or Snickers or what have you. So Pulisic, you really want, he's not going to come. None of these players are going to come before the World Cup. So we're here in 2024, then the 2024-25 season, the 2025 season, which will lead up to 2026, and then the World Cup pauses. So the soonest we can expect anyone is 2026, 2027. It may not happen there, but I think MLS, if they wanted to, based on what I said earlier about getting that hook in, you've got to get the wheels in motion. And maybe you get something like Christian Pulisic will be coming to MLS in 2027, which has happened in the past. You build that up, which is not too shabby of an alternative, right? If you can't get him in 2026, to promise that he will be there in 2027. He's under contract in 2027. Things can change. Now, money should not be a problem if there is a transfer fee involved. If an owner for MLS could sit down with Christian Pulisic, maybe it's his hometown team, Philadelphia Union. I will add that Christian Pulisic does have a house in Florida. He had a huge property in Pennsylvania. I believe he sold that in Lebanon County, where he's from. And now he has a property in Florida. So he likes the time in the United States. There's no doubt about that. Weston McKennie has a property in Florida as well. So they like coming back home. So you have a lot of positives there. Coming back home is the candy, coming back home. And with an ownership that is really serious, say, look, you're going to come here, you're going to be the guy. He makes Christian Pulisic unofficially, I believe, $7 to $8 million, which is really good. Weston McKennie makes $3 to $4 million, which makes him a more viable option, I think, to bring over. Christian Pulisic, if you make $7, $8 million, you come up there and you say, we're going to give you Lorenzo Insigne money, which was $14 million. And again, I don't know if they're going to do this. This is just me talking. I'm just talking about how you improve the league and you do it with young American players. It would be great in so many ways because young American players look up to these guys. We're getting younger American players. And the beautiful thing about this is we'll replenish what happens. And the belief is there may be a guy out there that will be better than Christian Pulisic that has started already. He might be 12 or 13 or 14 and eventually end up in Europe. Players know they have to go there. Maybe not, but I tend to think there will be. And so when Christian Pulisic at the World Cup, he'll be 27, 28. If you want to make a big, let's say $12 million move, you don't do it when you're 32. You do it now because the landscape could change a lot by 27, 28. So it depends how much he accomplishes. He's loving his football now. He'll get the World Cup. If you want to stay in Europe for the next World Cup in 2030, he will be 32, 33. I would expect Pulisic to still be he'd be 33. That's getting up there. So this is what I'm saying, that it's not impossible. I don't expect him to come. Maybe I would expect him the earliest maybe 2027, but there's some apparatuses in place there that could certainly make this happen. And money talks and happiness talks, and whatever happens at the World Cup, the euphoria of the United States could be a pull as well. So there you have it. Christian Pulisic's out there. Weston McKennie seems like a more realistic option. Told you some of his background. He has, I think, a 3-year contract extension with Juventus. He has been phenomenal. He is so consistent with La Vecchia Signora of Italian football. He also had issues, and I think that's the kind of thing. Things are going great. You know, what happened at Leeds was not ideal. Even prior to that, at Juventus at his first stint, it wasn't great. But he has really settled in to be the professional we always thought he could be, even exceeding that. In my estimation, I think many of you agree. If you watch him play at Juventus, he is usually the best or second best player on the field. He is everywhere. He does so much. He's almost irreplaceable in that lineup. So he is, I will tell you this. So this is something where I can I can incorporate myself into this conversation. When he was injured, he was at an LAFC game, and he was on his crutches, and I go, hey, man, this is pretty cool. And he goes, yeah, this is great. He was really impressed. I go back, oh, maybe one day. He goes, yeah. So Weston McKennie is so likable that he would be Christian Pulisic is, he's not as cuddly, I guess, to put it in one way, as Weston McKennie, who's joking and is the bon vivant of USMNT players. So he could be that guy that, you get the sound bites from. And handsome guy, you pop him up there, it would be huge. I'm not saying Christian Pulisic isn't. I can't understate the endorsement part, certainly after World Cup, that is achievable. They could make that money, obviously playing in Europe, but playing in the U.S. and being exposed to this American public with all of that PR and being within reach where you can see him at games, it would be a different level of endorsement money for Christian Pulisic and certainly for Weston McKennie. Let me go through this really quick. He had never really been locked down until recently. This is, we'll see, again, a transfer fee is not out of the realm of possibility. And again, things are going great here. But what we've seen with Pulisic and Weston McKennie, to think it's going to be like that moving forward would be a tad bit naive. But we shall see. Finally, Gio Reyna, who is now 21, about to be 22. Didn't work out at Dortmund. Nottingham Forest, okay start, but we will see. Things could go pear-shaped really quickly, and all of a sudden, Gio Reyna's career, even though he's young, and I would be patient with him, but if he's 22, the pressure to find his level is going to be ramped up. And if that level's not Dortmund, and if that level's not the Premier League, he's got to find it. Whether it could be somewhere else in the Bundesliga, in the Dutch Eredivisie, Serie A, it's got to be a right fit. And he is not as appealing to me as the other two, but certainly a guy who was involved with New York City FC's academy at one point that would be a huge addition. And he could be attainable just because his contract, not as lengthy. I don't think he wants to come back, but he has to find the right fit. He's got to find the club that he connects with. And time goes by very quickly for these guys. You're 22, then you're 24, and you're like, I'm not playing. This is a problem. So these are very interesting things to keep tabs on. Now, I don't think all three collectively will come to MLS. But I think after the World Cup, the chance one will is very possible because it makes sense for MLS and it certainly makes sense for the players. And I would add to the fact, when you talk about money, because again, so many of you said they got to stay there because they're playing at a high level. Well, we've seen with Saudi Arabia, big contracts do a lot of talking. And if you can couple that with coming home, it could be a great combination for the league. So just food for thought. You can discuss. Leave me a comment. We'll be happy to continue the conversation in written form. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. And I will close here. The Colorado returning Americans, the Rapids did it. They got Georgi Mihailovic. They got Zach Steffen. Maybe there's some other young Americans that would come back. Maybe Ricardo Pepi one day, Brendan Aronson. Maybe Tim Ream plays the last stretch of his career here. Americans carry some weight in MLS because it is an American league. We'll see you next time.